Welcome, everyone. You have ventured into the Aging in Spirituality podcast. We welcome you. I'm Kathy Lee Taylor, and this is
Chris Jensen.
Today, we're going to be talking about 4 signs that indicate you are disconnected from your inner self. So, what is the real benefit of instantly recognizing when you fall off the spiritual path? If the goal is to stay centered in spirit, which when you first begin your yoga journey can be very challenging and it gets easier as you go, you want to be able to reap those benefits of living in higher levels of consciousness like joy and peace and harmony. Then you have to practice identifying when you're not in those states. So it's really about awareness of where your attention is. And there are some familiar signs that will point you in the right direction when you find you do wander off the path. Because if you're willing to be aware of these moments, you can quickly put yourself back on. So we're going to talk about 4 of those that are really common when you first start on the spiritual path. So if that sounds like something that is worth your time to learn, I promise when you are done, at least one of these scenarios will be something that you recognize that happens in your own life.
Sorry, I turned my phone off. I guess I didn't put do not disturb on.
Okay, so I'll just edit that whole section.
Okay.
Okay, starting back up again. So first of all, your emotions really can be your guidance system to understanding when you are on the spiritual journey and whether you have in fact steered off course from letting that inner guidance answer your important questions and let you know what it is you should be spending your time on. So let's give an example of it. One of the things that a lot of people do that gets them off the spiritual path is that feeling of being overwhelmed. Overwhelm is really a sign that, for me at least, my ego is running rampant, and typically it's some form of fear that is overtaking my ability to be centered and to be present in the moment. And basically what that does is render your ability to create to be practically useless. You can't, when you're in overwhelm, it's very hard to be productive, let alone to be creative. So often the answer to overwhelm is to calm your mind enough to get priorities straight. That's always what I tell people when I'm coaching them. If they tell me they're overwhelmed, the first thing is to try to get prioritize your activities. But it's most important, even above that, to get centered first, because that's the problem. You've lost touch with your center. You can't tackle tasks that you're doing during the day if you're not centered in spirit first. Well, you can, but you're going to feel stressed and you're going to feel overwhelmed, and your output is not going to be near as creative and connected to who you really are. So can you think of an example like that in your life, Chris, that when you feel overwhelmed?
Well, yeah. And I think that the thing is that when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to think about how to get centered. If you
Right.
haven't been doing something for a long time that helps you to get centered.
Right.
And I know I've felt overwhelmed. I've had jobs and, where all kinds of things were happening. And I had travel, really crazy travel, long trips to India and back. And it would feel overwhelming. And when I was in the overwhelmed feeling, nothing worked. Nothing really got done well. So knowing yoga for a really long time, I was able to step back and say, okay, this is a mode that I'm in because I'm off center. I feel like I have too much to do. And so how do I handle this? And rather than, jumping in to do a million things, I take the time to stop and just sit and do a meditation practice that helps me to center. Maybe I'll do witness consciousness where I just watch the mind and let everything settle down, or maybe a breathing practice, but whatever it takes to just get back to a more centered place. The main thing is first realizing not only that I'm overwhelmed, but I'm overwhelmed because I'm off center.
Well, I love that you said that about doing a breathing practice. I was going to have you give them a different kind of exercise, but I had a friend that I was talking to today that was experiencing severe anxiety. And what I eventually realized was that when she's in that state, she stops breathing. She's holding her breath, like really intensely. And that, like the tummy's pulled in. And I'm like, what? Of course you're having anxiety. You're breathing. Your body's telling you don't have any oxygen. You need to know how to breathe. So how does somebody that's in that, high, because overwhelm is really can be like for a type A personality, which I very much was, I, would have a list of tasks that had to be accomplished all day. And I would never stop until they were all done. I was never, think about my needs or what was going on inside me and my well-being. It was, you don't stop until you drop until everything is tackled, right? So how can we use our breath to get back from anxiety or that feeling of overwhelm?
Yeah, one of the things what happens when we get anxious or overwhelmed, we start to breathe very shallowly, and that's a real characteristic of it. But if we can, at that moment, if we recognize that we need to do something different, we do long, slow, deep breaths. That is really key to shifting out of that state.
Okay, so breathing in.
Go ahead. Like when we're anxious, we're breathing up here in the chest.
Yeah.
Like that. So what we have to do is shift to diaphragmatic breathing, which means a good way to do this, place your left hand on your navel, your right hand on your chest, and then you inhale, feeling the abdominal area where your navel is puffing out, then the middle of the chest, and then the upper chest.
Yeah.
And then you exhale, upper chest goes in, middle chest goes in, abdominal area goes in. And you do 3 or 4 of those deep breaths, and that will shift gears right away. It takes you out of the stress mode. And then you can do some other things too. You can do a breathing practice where you count. You inhale for a count, let's say of 5, and then you exhale 5, and then you inhale 5, and then you exhale 6, and then you do that 5 or 6 times. Keep extending your exhale, and you'll find that it just shifts the gears. It gets you out of that the panicky state.
That's really good advice. That actual technique but I always double it. Like if I inhale 5, if I'm panicked, inhale 5, exhale 10. You can't not calm down when you do that. If you're extending that out breath past where you were breathing in. So good advice. Okay. So, all right. So one of the other things that you can recognize when you feel like you're falling off the spiritual path is that you have this idea that you lack a purpose. And I think we talked about this in one of our other podcasts, but so many people get caught up in that drama of thinking that they have to have a purpose, and it causes them such anxiety because they don't know what it is and they don't get past, that idea. I mean, they spend all their days just searching for that answer, like, oh, please, God, tell me what my purpose is. What am I doing here? And months and years go by and you're like, I got nothing. I don't know what my purpose is, and it really can be really frustrating for them. So typically this kind of thinking is stemming from a fear in your life anyway. And it's, you can chase that tail for a long time and really not get the answer. So instead of worrying about knowing what your purpose is, like there's, the skies are going to part and God's going to say, yes, you're supposed to be a superstar, something. Which is kind of what the ego is looking for most of
That's
the
what the
time, you
ego's
know, like
looking for, yeah.
you're so special, you're gonna be this and this and this and this.
Mhm.
And you know, we'll try to like temper it and make it, you know, not so special so that it can fit into what our mold of our world is, which is just annoying actually when you look back in hindsight. And I'm honestly, listeners, just trying to save you some time on this one because I've definitely done this one. So
Everyone has,
yes,
everybody does that. We all
yes,
do. We all feel like, you know, we're here for an individual reason. And
right.
there is some truth to that, but not in the way we think there is. I
Not
mean,
in the way we approach it, right? Like if we
Right.
get connected to spirit
right.
and then we say, what is my next step? What is the thing that I'm supposed to, like, not, you don't have to have the whole, you know, come down from the mountain with a tablet and 10 rules you got to follow for the rest of your life or whatever. You just need to know what you need to do today, you know, what you need to know, do tomorrow, you know, and in that way, there's a beautiful unfolding of
Yeah,
what your
it's
purpose
kind
is.
of like the concept of dharma in yoga. Like
Yeah.
dharma is the way that higher consciousness or spirit wants to express through you. And
Yes.
people often misinterpret that and they feel like it's some kind of vocation or some great thing they're supposed to do. But
Right.
what it is just getting in touch and allowing the higher consciousness, the spirit, to come through you in whatever you do.
In whatever you do.
It
this
can
is
be
the important
sweeping the
part.
floor. It doesn't matter. If you're having spirit or higher consciousness come through, then you're aligned, you're doing your dharma, because that's the way it wants to express through you at that moment.
This is such an important point. I'm glad you brought up, because when you have that connection to spirit, and I think I'm basically talking about bhakti at this point, if it goes away or it fades, dang, you miss it so much.
Yeah.
Just like,
yeah.
oh no, come
Yeah.
back. I need that heart expansion. I need to be able to walk around with that ability to connect and to give. And boy, you just like, you know, you want to cry when you don't have it. You're like, I don't feel right. So, and that is a genuine, you know, longing to be of service when you have just let me connect to that, God. Just let me be able to walk around and be a very loving individual.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the thing. I mean, it's also recognizing that you're something's off, you know.
Yeah.
That your ego's dominant and you want to get back. And you know, you feel different. I mean,
Yes,
you know, when you're off center, you don't feel good. You feel
it's like being in the desert.
Yeah, fearful. When you're on center, it doesn't matter what happens.
Yes.
You know, you're more even keeled. And you know, it's not easy to do in the moment because we get caught up in the anxiety or the fear or whatever. And so it's going to take some practice. Like in yoga, we say intensity and repetition. So you're going to have to, you know, practice. Okay, I'm off center. Let me do something to get back to center and let that energy come through. And just the effort to do that is going to open it to happen.
I love that. The whole idea of being perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
It's okay to be perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, it's okay.
And you're probably going to feel like that for the rest of your life. So welcome
there is no such thing as perfect.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Allow yourself to be perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
And you can be so much more relaxed in your response to spirit, in your relationship with spirit, so that you can play with, you know, this is what I should be doing, or this is how I would react in this certain situation. And this is the best that I can give, you know, like you're always, you know, trying to be more, reaching for more.
Yeah.
So that actually brings us nicely into the third point that I was going to talk about. And that is when you feel disconnected from others, you can be sure you're off center. You can be sure that you have forgotten how spirit actually expresses in the world. That disconnection is a sign that you are disconnected inside first, you know, because when you are connected to spirit, everything is one. You know, you don't have that feeling of that person over there is separate from me, that situation over there is separate from me. You feel like you're part of everything that's going on in your world, and you are in the middle of that, being that loving human being, so that sense of separateness that causes us to feel isolated and unloved is really an illusion.
Yes.
If you're feeling it, find a way to connect to
Yep.
the
Yep.
unity of the universe.
Yeah, and that's, that's the thing. When we are in ego, we are disconnected from others.
Yes.
And whatever bit of centeredness we have, we don't have to be fully enmeshed in the inner self, but any connection whatsoever allows us to be more connected with others. And, we have to try sometimes.
Yeah.
I think.
So if they're sitting there feeling sorry for themselves, like, because I'm all alone, and we're not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at you. She would never do that. But I'm because I've been down that road so many times, I'm laughing at myself. I'm all alone. Nobody loves me, that kind of stuff. I have been there many times. And how do I get myself back from feeling really unloved? Well, guess what? If you have had a real experience, a direct experience of being loved through spirit, that's all you got to do is remember that. Allow it back in, open your heart back up, reconnect with that. It's like going to the beach.
Well,
reconnect with some piece of truth or beauty or good. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things right there is recall something, like maybe you haven't had that. Some of our folks listening haven't had that connection yet. So recall some blessing, some time when your heart opened. Recall what it feels like, someone you love, you haven't seen in 5 years, and they walk in.
Yeah.
Just open your arms and feel, and just recall that feeling. And that'll help you to get in touch and have that connection.
I love that you said that, because yes, some people will struggle with the idea of what that is all about.
Right.
Like I saw somebody in the weekend I hadn't seen for a couple of years. I hugged her so tight. I was like, oh, this is great. This feels so good, like, well, I actually get to see you, like since COVID, we hardly have been able to hug each other. Miss that so much. But just that feeling of hugging, that feeling of, a pet, how it looks at you, that's unconditional love right there.
Right.
And that'll put you right in the right space without, having to feel sorry for yourself. Because you feel disconnected. Okay, so that's a good one. I hope you heard that. If you're feeling lonely or hurt out there, that will be very helpful for you. And then number 4, just as a last way of something that really takes you away from being connected to your inner self, is that irritating battle you have with your monkey mind. I was chatting with somebody the other day who has real anxiety about the level of thoughts that go on. Their head just never stops. It's, described it as like a multi-track thing, and I think, when you start to learn to meditate, you realize, okay, well, I've got these thoughts going on here, but then there's this next layer that's going on here, and it's like, I have to deal with all of these. I have to calm these all down. And it's kind of like a freaky, one monkey jumping from the tree to the next tree to the next tree. How do I stop all of those, So the idea of the thoughts being calm really frightens some people. I know I've had people come into meditation class and won't close their eyes and won't go inside because they're afraid of what their mind is going to do when they do that, So this is a really good one for you, Miss Teacher, to how do you get over that if you have a real anxiety about connecting and your mind is just going to trip on you?
Yeah, I had the busiest mind in the world when I started yoga. I mean, not only I had one set of thoughts going, but I had another set, reporting on the first set of thoughts.
Reporter.
It was really crazy. My first meditation, in our advanced class, where it was a little bit longer meditation, and I looked around the room, that's what I was doing. I wasn't meditating, I was looking
right.
around the room. But you have to be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
And if your mind is really super busy, start with something physical. Start like yoga postures are great. I mean, anything,
Oh, okay.
some stretches, something like that. And just then maybe you do deep relaxation, lie on the ground and just try to relax your body parts. Do anything you can to get yourself in a little bit more relaxed space. If you can get a little tension out of the body, it'll help. It'll help the anxiety about going into the mind. And then really probably the best thing to do next is to do the witness consciousness practice, where you look around the room and you just try to observe. You don't close your eyes. You just look around and you try not to comment or judge. You're just looking around the room. And you do that for 5 minutes, and then close your eyes and see if you can just watch your thoughts and feelings in the same way for 5 minutes. If you can't, if it's still too crazy busy, then try to put a white light above your head and just let the light pour down over you. You can keep your eyes open, if that makes you more comfortable.
Yeah.
When you start to calm down, your eyes will naturally close a little bit.
Right.
But you got to do something to get out of the momentum.
Right. To get out of being triggered into whatever is triggering you into that anxiety. Notice it and try to set it aside. Like I know one of the things when we first were learning meditation, that you would teach us to see an orange or something in the third eye, like one thing that you could hold on to that was easy for you to see, a rose because it's so beautiful, or a fruit because you're hungry or whatever.
That's great. Whatever, that's great. That's absolutely great. Simple object.
But for what worked for me was a candle, because there was something about that flame that made my mind just go, oh, that's nice. Like it would just calm down, So I'm pointing it out because everybody is unique. Everybody does it differently, right? I mean, that's one thing we have talked about a lot at the yoga center. What works for one person won't for the other. So please, whoever is, learning to meditate, don't feel like you have not succeeded if something we say doesn't work the first time. Try something different. Every personality will be calmed by something different. Like I have a friend who's a beach girl. She's a freaking mermaid. You just put water on for her and she calms right down. So everybody's really different. It is.
Some people it's sound,
Yes.
You could listen to some music that's soothing, you could chant. It doesn't have to be you could chant Om, but you could also chant peace, 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 love, love, love.
I love that. Yeah.
Anything that is a very positive, intimate word for you, or you could do 1, 1, 1, whatever it is, it's going to help you if you're more auditory dominant, so it depends. Some people it's visual, some people auditory, whatever it is. It starts, like you said, with recognizing that, okay, my mind is all over the place. I want to shift to something different. Just that desire makes a difference.
Desire is the first step for sure. And then try until you feel your mind just shift down in gears, like you're shifting a car down into the first gear. When you feel that happen, and it works for you naturally, that's the thing to hold on to and to repeat. That's the thing that'll help you get into a state of complete calm. And then, the rest of the meditation practice can take over and you can actually, transcend your mind and emotions, and they won't even play a part in that connection, which is a beautiful thing. As we know, as longtime meditators, that's something that once you experience it, you never want to lose it.
You bet.
Okay, lovely people, we have come to the end of today's podcast. I hope these tips helped you in some way. Just really think about what it is that I can do every day to stay connected to spirit. It's probably the best advice that either of us could give you in terms of leading a life that is just, full of joy and all the amazing things that we can experience here on the earth. So if you have questions about meditation or pranayams or anything that has to do with yoga, Chris and I are happy to answer them. Chris is located, you can find her at theyogacenter.org, and you can find me at kathyleetaylor.com. Please feel free to send us your questions and your comments.
Yeah,
We'd
we'd
love
love to hear from you.
We sure would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Pretty
Bye.
flowers, right? Pretty flowers.